Hi, everybody. Good morning, and a huge welcome to our April Includability Community Support Group. It's really lovely to see you all. And as ever, if this is your first time with us on an Includability CSG, then a huge welcome to the family. It's wonderful to have you with us this morning. And of course, to all of our brilliant returning community, it's just wonderful to be by your side as always. If you're happy to do so, please do take a moment to introduce yourselves onto the chat feed. This is your tribe, your community. So please do tell us about your world. Tell us what you do. Share your upcoming events with us. And incredibly importantly, please let us know how we can support you. You're all officially part of the Includability Collective, and you have the most amazing community on the planet wrapped around you. So please do let us know how we can help your business. You're so welcome to lean on us. It's what we're here for. Our very own James Pravato will be supporting with any questions you might wish to pop into the chat feed during the CSG itself, as well as sharing links, upcoming news, events, and more for you across the next hour. And serving up a monthly treat, as always, we have an inspirational lineup of three fabulous guest speakers to help inspire you on your journey in creating a healthier and a more inclusive workplace culture for your business. I'm delighted to be joined by the brilliant Stacey Lowman, co-founder of Money First Aid, the fabulous Alex Manners, presenter and author, and the amazing Roxy McCarthy, Samaritan's ambassador, and the brilliance behind the Mental Elf. Now, just before we introduce our first guest speaker for you this morning, a huge thank you to our brilliant first cohort of Burnout Awareness First Aiders, who all successfully completed their training with the wonderful Katie Maycock last Wednesday. These workshops really are designed to be super accessible. They're split into 4 1-hour online sessions that deliver practical burnout training. It's all geared towards prevention, culture change, and sustainable performance. So, if you'd like to join the second cohort, which is due to start in the early summer, then please do click on the link that James is just popping into that chat feed for you now to register your interest. It's perfect for anyone keen to build their knowledge around tackling burnout properly and building healthier, more sustainable workplaces for the benefit of their teams. I'm now delighted to introduce our first guest speaker for you, the wonderful Stacey Lowman, co-founder and director at Money First Aid, and of course, one of our fantastic includability ambassadors. As a financial expert, Stacey's doing incredible work in providing members of the business community with no prior financial knowledge with the necessary skills to support others in overcoming the financial difficulties that we can all face in life. Stacey, it is so lovely to see you as always, and the virtual floor is yours when you're ready.
Thank you so much, Dave. It's really lovely to be back here again. And it's an opportune time of the year because April is Financial Wellbeing Awareness Month. So I'm going to talk today. I've got some slides to share. Hopefully you can all see those now. Great, thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about financial stress and the latest research we've done at Money First Aid about the link between financial stress and how that impacts performance and productivity at work. And then I thought I'd share some practical tips for us and for you to go and share back in your organizations of things that have helped me, particularly this year, deal with my own financial stresses. And then I wanted to offer everybody on the call today free access to trial our Money First Aid course. So I will share how to do that at the end. So I think lots of us can resonate with feeling financial pressure, and that is out of our control and a result of what is going on around us in this very uncertain world. So we have seen in various ways all of the costs going up from household bills, our rent and mortgages, our food costs, all of those insurance, transport costs, our commute perhaps, council tax is going up in a lot of areas, subscriptions and services, everything seems to be going up. And obviously that's at the same time as what was announced in the budget, that income tax thresholds are staying the same. So even if our wages are going up by however much, a little bit more of that will be going to tax. So that it is understandable that financial worries are one of the key reasons that a lot of us are feeling stress in general. And that is alongside us just thinking, what could possibly be next? What is the next world event that is going to cause chaos to our bank balances? So it is something that lots of us are feeling at the moment. And so at Money First Aid, what we've been doing to be able to get those business cases approved and get more financial support available to employees in the workspace is demonstrating just how this financial stress impacts performance and productivity at work. So, as part of the Money First Aid course, all of our Money First Aiders from the last 2 years have been answering the question, when you feel financial stress, how does this impact kind of who you are at work and how you show up to work? And so this data is now being collected for 2 years ongoing. It's now across 148 different organizations, all sorts of different sectors, from retail, hospitality, transport, manufacturing, legal and financial services. And 89% of our Money First Aiders have reported that financial stress does have a negative impact on their role in some way. And more specifically, 72% of those mentioned focus and concentration is lost at work to some extent. And for certain organizations, that is a key metric. So if your staff are out there driving a vehicle, managing machinery, dealing with the general public, that could easily be a health and safety risk for many organizations. And almost 50%, I think it's 48%, one in two explicitly said anxiety or low mood is something that they take to work with them when they are feeling financially stressed. Interestingly, 1 in 4 of our Money First Aiders said that they actually work harder and hyper-perform in periods of financial stress. And some of the reasons behind that are if they work in an organization where they can take on extra shifts and they think getting extra income in some way can alleviate the financial stress they're feeling. Others spoke about feeling a sense of shame around their financial situation, and therefore it was more important to them to hold on to their professional reputation and how they are perceived at work to kind of compensate for shame they're feeling with their finances. But obviously that is not sustainable, working harder and hyper performing over the long term. So that can lead to bigger issues for organizations like health concerns, longer term absences, and periods of leave. 1 in 6 noticed disruptive sleep and all the resulting impacts that can have on our overall well-being and our ability to show up physically and mentally well at work. And 14% admitted to withdrawing socially from work and colleagues, which can have a huge impact on the culture and how we feel as a whole team. So some very stark, not surprising to us, but hopefully some interesting insights to organizations who perhaps haven't been able to make that direct connection to what we're feeling in our personal finances with how we are in the workplace. And so this is the specific question we ask in the course. So when you have, oh, I can't see the top of my slide, but when you're going through periods of financial stress or you have poor financial health, how did it affect your approach to work and your performance at work? So just really bringing the personal aspect here, I think having the quotes and the qualitative data is really interesting. So people are saying things like, my mind becomes chaotic, making it difficult to think clearly. I feel like I'm an ineffective worker. It's difficult to be truly present. I was extremely tired. I was using energy drinks to compensate. And because I was embarrassed, I worked harder to compensate. And this only added to my stress and burnout. It makes me feel like my efforts are devalued, decrease my focus, escalate my emotional responses. I thought that was a really interesting little phrase there, and how that can affect teamwork and collaboration and culture. and I distanced myself from my colleagues. So we are going to continue to ask this question as part of the training and continue to build on this data. And hopefully we can use these insights to really change the way that we are providing support and the type of support we're providing for financial stress in the workplace. So some things that have really helped me, and I've been sharing in sessions with organizations when we are going through periods of financial stress. One of the most important things to do first is really know your own numbers. So there is so much noise around finances, fear mongering in the media, or lots of people from various places telling us what we should do with the money that we do have. So it's really important to kind of embed ourselves in the reality of where we actually are. So having a little money dashboard of what you owe, what you own, what you earn, and what you spend. And having clarity on those numbers gives us this little dashboard that is within our control, and we can see what potential levers we have got to make ourselves feel as kind of resilient and secure and stable with our own financial situation as possible. So we can't change what we can't see. It can be really difficult if someone's been avoiding their finances for a while to have that first look at your bank balance or look at what your credit card statement is. But once we know that, we are able to see what we've got to play with. So getting clear on your numbers first and having your own little control dashboard for your finances. Another thing that's really helped me is having a regular money check-in. So I do these fortnightly, but people can do it whenever, at whatever frequency it suits them. But actually diarising it, having it as a meeting in your diary. If you're doing it with your family or your partner, maybe Sunday morning after breakfast. If you're on the train for commuting to work, maybe one of your morning commutes, or blocking out a lunchtime during your working week. And these are some of the questions that I ask myself in my money check-in. So, what progress have I made since my last check-in? What are my financial goals this month? Am I on track? Do they still reflect what matters, or has something happened and I need to adjust those? What payments are coming up that I need to plan for? How is my spending? Any habits that I want to try and get on top of? How can I make my money management easier and more fun? What money conversations do I need to plan? What one small action could I take this week to feel better about my finances? What small wins can I celebrate? And making any updates to maybe your dashboard that we went through, or your budget, any goal trackers that you use, etc. So I do this. I have a little like money notebook, and I have these questions at the front. During the week, if ever like any money worries, or I wake up at 3 a.m. worrying about something to do with money, I'll just make a note of it. And I know that I've got a time diarised within the next 2 weeks that I can go back and look at that. And so once you get into the habit over time, you can build on it. But knowing that I've got a money check-in to address some of these issues really helps. And finally, I've been suggesting to people to create their own money support map, which is like a mind map of what support have I got around me to help with my personal financial challenges. I think this is really helpful because small actions are the antidote to anxiety in general. So taking the time to think like, okay, I'm worried about this. Let me like figure out what resources and support networks have I got around me. It shows us that we've probably got more support than we realize around us with finances. They can be personal connections. They can be free charities and organizations like Step Change, like Money Helper. They can be workplace benefits that perhaps you've been meaning to look at and take advantage of, but you haven't yet. Or they can be people like my Auntie Ange, who always seems to get the best deals, and I need to get tips from her as to how to save money in the supermarket, whatever it might be. So building out your own money support map. This also helps address the shame that we feel around money. When we're facing a money challenge, it's usually quite immediate and something we need to solve quickly, and emotions are heightened. And it can be really difficult to approach people in those situations, especially if you're not used to talking about money. So by having this money support map already built out for you, and you know if this situation occurs, these are the people I can support. Even better if you can put on your money support map the phone numbers, the websites, like how to actually contact these people when you really need to. You've already done that thinking. So in those times of heightened stress, it just becomes part of your process. So you can have this as a screenshot on your phone or fold it up on paper and put it in your wallet. Stick it to the bottom of your laptop so it's just underneath your keyboard whenever you need it. But building out a money support map has been helpful to me, and some of you guys might want to try it too. So, a money first aider is somebody in an organization who is equipped with the knowledge, the skills, the resources to support someone, a colleague, who is experiencing financial issues. They know how to spot the signs of financial distress. There's somebody to talk to and listen for those facing a financial challenge. And they're able to signpost to free, eligible, credible, impartial, confidential resources. So, state support, charity support, local council support, existing workplace benefits when that's needed. So we have been training Money First Aiders in organisations for the last 2 years, and they are really helping to provide that peer-to-peer support, break down that shame and taboos around talking about money in the workplace. And as wonderful ambassadors to the amazing Includability Network, we do like to offer a free trial of the course to anybody who attends. So on our website, we have set up the discount code Includability, which will give you free access to the course for a money first aider. If you're already a mental health first aider, we have a version of the course for you too. So one of those, so you can test the course and see if it would help you and your organization to address money stress. So please do try that if you are interested. That's well, I just wanted to share one more thing. Conscious that April, as well as Financial Wellbeing Awareness Month, is the first month that the budget announcements made at the end of last year come into effect. So there's lots of negative news around money at the moment, but there were a few glimmers of silver lining announced in the budget. So some of the benefits are going up, the state pension's going up. We've got some freezes on bus and train journeys, which might help with commuter costs and various other things that have come into place in April. So it's a great time to remind everyone at your organisation to check their pay slip. And if they're on minimum or national living wages, to check that that's gone up in line with those changes. And to do a benefits calculator. So turn to us or entitled to if they are claiming benefits alongside work. So hopefully there will be increases to the benefits that they can claim as well. So it's a really great time of the year to remind your colleagues to check their pay slips and do a new benefits calculator. I do have a summary of all of the budget announcements in a PDF that I will drop in the chat after this. But that's everything I wanted to share. Hopefully it's been useful, and thank you as always for having me. Wonderful Includability.
Oh my word, Stacey, you are wonderful. That was amazing. Thank you so much and so brilliantly insightful. I think we can all agree that we all need an Auntie Ange who can spot those wonderful deals. Stacey, obviously, as she's mentioned beautifully, two amazing online courses that you can access through the Includability Marketplace within the community platform, or of course through the wonderful Money First Aid website. So please do check that out. One on financial wellbeing awareness and a CPD certified course that will enable you to become a money first aider. It's a wonderful opportunity to obviously build your own financial knowledge, but also to use those newfound skills to support colleagues within the workplace. It's a tremendous benefit for any business. So please do reach out to Stacey. I think we can all agree that, especially now more than ever, we need Stacey and Money First Aid in our lives. Stacey, you're the best. Thank you so much. That was absolutely wonderful, as always.
Thank
And
you.
now, just before we introduce our next guest, we have a lot of lovely new faces with us this month. So please indulge us while James shares some incredibly exciting includability updates. James, over to you, mate.
All right, thanks, Dave. Hey everyone. Hope you're having the best morning. And I just wanted to steal you for literally 3 minutes, and then I promise I'll hand back to the amazing speakers. For those of you who know Includability, you know the work we do, creating cultural roadmaps that bring EDI, mental health, well-being, sustainability, talent, and leadership and governance into one clear picture, and how commercially and culturally important it is to have alignment across those 6 pillars. But today, I want to tell you a bit about what comes next, because there's often a gap between knowing what you need to do and finding the right people to actually help you educate your teams and put that plan into practice. So that's why we went away and we have built the Includability Academy, which is now the practical learning layer of everything we offer across our 6 pillars. Now, there's no shortage of training out there. And you typically will have two flavors on the market right now. There's the cheap and cheerful vanilla compliance LMS, where a lovely AI voice walks you through something like microaggressions using a script that was clearly written probably before microaggressions was something that we knew what they were. And then there's the pistachio £3,000 a day consultant who pops in, runs a workshop, leaves a deck, and you never see again. Now, we live in a world that is throwing pitfalls and sort of stumbling blocks at us all every single day in determining what is real and what is good support and what isn't. Now, the academy is built around trust. People you already know, trusted experts you hear from on these very community support groups. And if you're a committed employer, the same practitioners on your partner calls. So who they will fully understand where you are, where you want to take your culture as a business. So we're really excited to announce the first few courses are hitting the shelves in the next few weeks. We've got Saski's Everyday Pride, an LGBTQIA plus inclusion course, Kate Latrobe on neurodiversity in the workplace, Will Clear on good governance and great leadership, and the amazing Matt Holman on mental health awareness at work, plus lots more, including our Jedi Toolkit designed for purpose-led companies and B Corps. Now, all of this is built for busy people who want more education, but also need to implement what they learn. It's designed so that you can watch a module, complete a workbook on a Monday, and start using that knowledge on a Tuesday. And we'll be adding new courses and modules every month. We're also building in community chat features into some of the courses so you can share ideas and with your peers as part of group learning, because the best learning never happens alone. So, being a committed employer is now your strategy and cultural roadmap, and Academy is where that strategy becomes behavior in your organization. Trusted experts, practical learning, and built for people to support their work. Keep an eye out for the launch mailer dropping in the next few weeks. I'm going to pop the link in the chat here if you want to have a little mooch around in the Academy site. And if you want to talk about training for your teams, please feel free to give me or Dave a shout. So look, thanks for my 3 minutes. I'm going to hand you back to Dave.
Jay, that was amazing. Thanks so much, mate. Wonderful. Thank you. And so exciting. I am now delighted to introduce our next guest speaker, the brilliant Alex Manners, author of That's Not Right, My Life Living with Asperger's, speaker, presenter, and of course, one of our inspirational includability ambassadors. Alex, it's so lovely to see you as always, my friend, and the virtual floor is yours when you're ready.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you very much. Yeah, really, really excited to be back onto another ESG. I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my experiences of living with autism today. I know it's really important when we talk about autism, when we show people exactly what that's like to live with, to work with. So I'm just going to give you just a quick overview about some of the things that I find challenging, about some of the things that I look upon as a positive as a result of my diagnosis, and just a little bit about my life growing up with that diagnosis. So yeah, I'll cover quite a lot of topics. So hopefully you'll find some inspirational learning from some of the topics that I'm going to be sharing. So yeah, I guess I'll just get started, and yeah, really hope you enjoy listening to my experiences of living with autism. So I'll start from where I was diagnosed. So I was diagnosed with autism when I was 10 years old. And back then, I was diagnosed with what was known as Asperger syndrome, which is not a term that's used to diagnose people with anymore. Instead, people are now diagnosed with ASD or autism spectrum disorder. And I remember at the time sitting in a room at my primary school with my parents and the school Senko. And the Senko suddenly said to me, "By the way, Alex, do you realize that you have Asperger's?" Well, I had no idea what this thing called Asperger's was at the time. And to be honest, felt a little bit confused. But as soon as that meeting finished, my dad took me outside and showed me or told me that I should not be worried about having Asperger's because lots of our family had Asperger's and autistic traits, and that it gave me special powers. So, whilst there's been a lot of challenges that I've had to cope with and face, there's also been a lot of positive elements of my diagnosis. And those positive elements are the things that I like to focus on all of the time. Now, what led me to being diagnosed was that it was actually a friend in America who had a son with autism. And when we went over on holiday over there to visit him, he recognized some of the traits that were similar in his son that were similar in me. So he was the first person to kind of say to my family, "Oh, I think Alex might have autism or Asperger's." But looking back, there were quite a few signs that I might be different because for me growing up, the world around me was really confusing. And I kept shouting out, "That's not right." And a brilliant example is when I used to walk to school and there was like a very slight incline on the road. And I remember writing to the Prime Minister to try and ban hills because I could not stand walking up this hill to work. And I remember about a year ago actually driving down this road with some of my friends, and they were like, "Was this the hill that you wrote to the Prime Minister about?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "But there's no hill at all. There's not even like, it's hardly like an incline in the road at all." And yeah, the world around me was so confusing, and I was always saying that's not right. So growing up, school was one of the most stressful places I ever went to. And for me, going to school used to feel like I was going to prison every day. In primary school, I was not only bullied by some of the peers in my year group, but it also felt like some of the teachers were bullying me as well because it felt like they didn't have any understanding of what autism was. It felt like they didn't want to put the things in place that not only I needed, but that I was entitled to because of my statement of special educational needs. And so my dad even had to get someone to come in from the council to explain to the teachers why they had to treat me differently. And throughout my time in both primary and secondary school, my dad did a tremendous amount of fighting to get me the support that not only I needed, but again, that I was entitled to. Because I'd been diagnosed in primary school, I was able to go to a smaller independent secondary school that had more support in place for people with autism. So there were smaller class sizes, more learning support teachers in lessons. But, I still found school really stressful, and school still felt like I was going to prison, even though my secondary school I found a lot more supportive than my primary school. There were lots of things at school put in place for me. So things like I had a timeout system where I could go to a quiet space. One of the teachers made me some little cards that I kept in my blazer pocket. And these cards had pictures of footballers on, which I'll talk about in a little while, and motivational quotes. So those really helped. And then in secondary school, I always had a learning support teacher in my lessons, which was brilliant, and a worry book. And the worry book was brilliant because it was a way for my learning support teacher to write down anything that had been going on during the school day, and my mum and dad to write down anything that I was worried about at home. So it was a way for them to better support me when maybe they weren't around. Um, Two of the biggest challenges I faced in school, one was with the homework, because I would be so stressed worrying about whether we'd get homework at the end of a lesson that I wouldn't be able to concentrate on the work we were doing. Because for me, I couldn't accept, having this stressful day at school and then having to go home and do even more work. And the uniform was always a big challenge because when I'm wearing colourful clothes, I feel like I can conquer anything. But when I was wearing like the dark greys and blacks of the school uniform, I honestly felt like I was being forced to hide my personality and honestly felt quite depressed. So yeah, school was a really big challenge for me. But then, autism is completely different for everyone. And as the saying goes, once you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. But there are lots of common traits that autistic people might have. So we might be over or undersensitive to sensory stimuli. So for me, things like labels in the back of shirts, seams at the ends of socks are unbearable. I even sometimes have to get my grandma to unstitch the seams on the socks and sew them on back to front, just so that I'll be able to wear that particular pair of socks. Certain noises like ticking clocks, ticking radiators literally drive me insane. And I can't even begin to tell you the amount of the arguments that were caused when I was younger purely because of the ticking radiators. Meltdowns is another common trait that lots of autistic people experience. And I still have meltdowns today because autism is something I'll have for life. But those meltdowns don't happen as frequently or for as long as, they would have done when I was younger. And I feel very lucky to have such a large and supportive network of family and friends. Because, like I've said, without my parents' ability to fight for what I needed in school or to keep me being really positive and talking to me about the positives of my diagnosis, I don't think I'd be the person, sitting here today, talking to you so openly and so honestly. Now, another big trait of autism that lots of autistic individuals may have is a special interest, which is basically a subject or a topic that we're obsessed with or know a lot about. And let me tell you, mine is definitely football. I am absolutely obsessed with it. I mean, I've watched a match at all 92 Football League rounds. I can name all of the football clubs in the top 5 tiers of English football. So I can name all 116 grounds and their capacities. I've got a collection of around 200 football shirts. So football has always been a massive part of my life. And my interest in football has actually helped me to cope with a lot of the challenges that I faced throughout my life as a result of my diagnosis. Now, my interest is quite common, but many individuals might have a slightly more unusual interest. So one of my friends from school who has autism, just like me, is absolutely obsessed with anything to do with bins, skips, and rubbish. And let me tell you, I've even found myself taking photos of bins and skips when I've been out and about. And even my mum last year, when she was on holiday with my sister in Italy, even my mum was sending me back photos of Italian bins just so that I could, share those with my friend. Another interest of mine is actually children's television. And yeah, you wouldn't probably expect a 29-year-old to still be watching shows like Horrid Henry, Thomas Tank Engine, or Noddy. But yeah, they're still shows that I love to watch now and again. And I always say the shows are really colourful and the characters are really easy to understand. They never have any complex storylines. You can always tell how the characters are feeling. So in essence, children's shows are really easy for me to understand, which I think are some of the reasons, as well as them being very colourful, that I really enjoy them. And I've always viewed my Asperger's, as I mentioned, as something very positive. And I always say that without that diagnosis, I wouldn't be the person that you see here today. And although autism is classed as a disability, I prefer to look upon it rather as an ability. And I always say that there's lots of positive elements of having a diagnosis that I like to call my autism superpowers. Now, one of my superpowers, I believe, is my ability to be able to stand up and speak in front of large groups of people. It's something that a lot of my friends that have a diagnosis just wouldn't feel confident at doing. And because that is one of my superpowers, I now have my own business where I go all over the country delivering talks and training to any different kind of companies, law firms, banks, hospitals, schools, all around what autism is like to live with, to work with, and show people not just the challenges, but also the positives of having that diagnosis. One of my ambitions is to become a TV presenter. And let me tell you, I wouldn't have met nearly as many people in the TV world without having that diagnosis. I even presented my own radio show for 2 years. And as was mentioned, I've written and published my very own book. And again, I wouldn't have achieved either of these things if I hadn't been diagnosed with Asperger's back when I was 10 years old. So yeah, I believe that my autism and my Asperger's will almost be the catalyst that enables me to achieve my dreams. And one thing that I always like to kind of mention towards the end of a talk or anytime I'm speaking is if you've ever watched a program called The Undateables on Channel 4 and you've ever seen an individual on that program in a bright orange suit, well, that would have been me because, as you know, I'm a very, very colourful person and love anything brightly coloured. So yeah, I went on 2 episodes of that program. So that's just a little overview of my life living with autism. As I mentioned, I look upon it as something positive. Yes, there will be a lot of challenges that I will have to face throughout my life and that I still have to face today because autism is something that individuals have for life. So autistic children grow up to become autistic adults. It has got a lot easier as I've grown up because, I found more ways of coping with some of the challenges. I've gathered more coping strategies. And I guess because I'm not in school, a lot of the challenges I once had are no longer there. But autism is something I'll have for life. So I really hope you've enjoyed that little talk today. And you now understand autism that or know a little bit more about it from some of my insights. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me on to speak.
Oh my word, Alex, that was just amazing. I could just listen to you all day. You're just my favorite. Thank you, mate. That was really wonderful. And as Alex said so beautifully, it's presented to companies, law firms, universities, and charities, both in the UK and internationally. So please do get in contact with Alex if you'd like him to speak at your next event. As you can so easily tell, he's the most wonderful speaker. And there are links and contact details in the chat feed for you now, as well as a link to Alex's beautiful football documentary that he spoke about, Football, Autism and Me, which charts his passion for the game and that incredible quest to watch a match at all 92 Football League clubs. It's a really, really, really wonderful watch. I, as a football fan, Alex and I were catching up yesterday. I knew that we had like a tight half an hour because he's incredibly busy. And we spoke for about 28 and a half minutes purely about football. And because Alex was gorgeous and indulged me around Tottenham's relegation struggles this year, you're a beautiful man. So thank you for letting me cry on you for all of that time. It was greatly appreciated. James is Liverpool and doesn't feel any sympathy for my plight, so I love you for what you do for me. Alex, you're just the best. Thank you so much again. It's just incredible to listen to you and to be with you as always. And we would now love you to vote for a charitable project that we can support on your behalf this morning through our partnership with B1G1. We talk about them on every CSG, but they're a brilliant B Corp. They're a certified global giving platform, and they support hundreds of charitable projects, both in the UK and internationally, all positively impacting the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So, as ever, you're doing an incredible thing for the planet simply buying awesome and being and hanging out with us this morning. James is going to pop those options into the chat feed for you now. You've got three amazing, super high impact community projects to choose from. And please simply pop the letter of your chosen project into the chat feed, A, B, or C. So, Project A is providing access to clean water by sponsoring a well and a water pump in Malawi. Project B is protecting native forests through local community action in Honduras. And Project C is providing teaching materials to a nursery school in the Mukateri region of Ethiopia. So three great projects. And as you choose your chosen project, James is going to pop another link into the chat feed for you now. James is being amazing. So many links going in today. But there is, of course, no pressure to do this. But if you fancied just taking a look at B1G1 membership and becoming a business for good yourself, then that link will give you $50 in your B1G1 account to support any of the amazing B1G1 charitable projects of your choosing that are out there. Includability also receives $50 into our B1G1 account as an official B1G1 partner, but we will transfer that $50 to you. So effectively signing up will give you $100 and you can spend on that to support amazing charities both in the UK and internationally. It's a wonderful way, a very easy way to embed positive impact into your everyday business operations. So please have a play with the link if you'd like to. And of course, any questions, don't hesitate to let us know. Right, I'm now delighted to introduce your final guest speaker, the wonderful Roxy McCarthy, Samaritan's Ambassador and Includability Ambassador, former head of creator engagement at Jack, and the magic and the brilliance behind the Mental Elf. Driven by Roxy's extraordinary and passionate desire to help people feel seen and to spark those conversations that truly matter. Roxy, I cannot tell you how lovely it is to see you. It's brilliant to have you with us. And the virtual floor is yours when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Dave. It always cheers me up coming on these ESGs. Can you see me and hear me okay? Okay, perfect. I've had some technical difficulties this morning, and it's nice to see you, Alex. I feel like I've let the neurodiversity team down by not actually wearing colours. I was like, oh no, I've not got my anything colourful on. And I was also, Stacey, it was really interesting to hear your like money and pressure worries, or like the talk, just because I know, like, I've gone through redundancy recently, and the financial pressure is kind of starting to hit. And I even got to the point where I did get a freelance opportunity, and I ended up making a huge mistake, which was basically to delete the whole entire content library of the entire business, because of the pressure that I've kind of put on myself. Like, it's funny, we can laugh now. It wasn't funny yesterday when I did that, and I think the financial pressure that I've put myself under. But anyway, that's just a little bit of a reflection, and also to put out there, like, and be honest, because of that yesterday, I'm not 100% prepared for this. So please bear with me, because I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to say or what I'm going to talk about, but something will come out of my mouth. So let's get into it. So I usually, if I was in a room with everybody now, I would ask you to put your hand up if you or you're somebody that you know has been impacted by mental health or struggled in any way. So just take that minute to reflect on, like, yourself or anybody that you might be surrounded by. And then I'll go into it. So in every December, and please bear with me when I start talking about Christmas, because I'm not dressed as an elf at the moment, because I've not got my elf hat with me. But every December, we pull out the box of tangled decorations. You know, the lights might be tangled, the baubles might be dusty, some of the baubles might be broken, and we repair, we untangle, we rearrange, and we put everything back on the tree so it shines again. And I feel like this is very similar to the way that our brains and our lives work. Like, things get tangled, things are broken. Sometimes we wake up in the morning, we have to dust ourselves off and start as we start the day. And that's because we want to go out into the world and we want to shine and we want to be our best, but that's not always the case. And why I talk about Christmas is because usually I am dressed up as mental health, because that is something, I want to go out and talk about mental health with some, like, honesty, a kindness, but also a bit of fun and a bit of humour, because it is a topic that is often quite difficult to talk about. And I am a person that has a lot of tangled emotions and things that have happened in my life that have been extremely difficult. And I could talk to you for hours about my whole life experience, but even just struggling with my own mental health from being young, which now I know is as a result of having ADHD all my life, recently diagnosed. But like, growing up around a lot of addiction and a lot of domestic violence and a lot of very, very difficult situations. And then more recently, losing people close to me to suicide, my birth father and my friend. And that's what's motivated me to dress as an elf, to try and open up those conversations, because I think it's important that before people do get into the crisis point, that we can actually have, like, a conversation about that. So sorry, I'm just going back to my notes so I don't go off on a tangent. So yeah, that's what I talk about. The mental health has also led me to the most recent job that I did, which was working for a company called Jack, a mental health and wellbeing platform. I interviewed over 500 people, doctors, people with lived experience of mental health. And my kind of mission was always to break down the stigmas, slay the stigmas around mental health and help everybody be their best elves. That's my mission statement. And for the last 5 years, I have sat on the phones at the Samaritans, being a volunteer as well as an ambassador. And when you sit with somebody who, is in the real depths of difficult times, you want to help them, like, before they get to the Samaritan, before they get to the phones and pick up. And that was always what I could do at Jack, is to give people information, share people's stories of hope and what they've been through, because ultimately I feel like everybody on this call would probably have gone through some sort of struggle or something in their life that has made it a challenge to keep keep going. And if you can get the information, and this is what organisations and companies, you give people the right information, you create touch points like mental health first aiders, or you give people the support like money first aid, like touch points of connection and support that stop people, that kind of interject at the right point before somebody kind of just doesn't talk about it until, and then they end up ringing the Samaritans. And I always like to share a story that I was dressed as mental health one time, and I went into a networking event, and there was a lot of businessmen in suits and ties, and I was dressed as an elf. And I went up to the bar and I just ordered a glass of wine, and this man said, "It's not fucking Christmas, love." And I said, "All right." I said, "Yeah, no, I'm aware of that." He said, why are you dressed like that?" And I said, "Oh, I want to talk about mental health. If you were wearing an elf hat, what would you say?" And he just looked at me, took a sip of his wine, and he said, "I didn't leave the house for 2 years and nobody knows about it. And I had severe depression." And he just opened up about this whole, what he'd gone through and what he'd experienced, and even to the point of like how he would get his food shop into his house. And later on in that evening, I met somebody who was his business partner, who said, "Oh, my business partner, that guy over there, multimillionaire, really successful, got this business, this business, this business." And little did this business partner know that I'd just, heard his story, that he hadn't left the house. And I didn't say anything. And then at the end of the night, the man at the bar came back to me and he said he felt really good just to say that out loud. And he said, "I'm just really confused that I've said it to a stranger, especially a stranger that's dressed as an elf." He said, "But I'm actually going to share with my business partner what I've been going through." And then obviously they both didn't know that this elf had kind of created that moment. But this is the moments we can create with strangers. I now interview people in the streets, asking them about their life stories, and a lot of people, just even they're quite open to talk about these things. So even just talking to people on the train or in the queue or in the workplace, someone that you might not have known, like just that moment of like where they feel safe, or they feel heard, or they even feel asked. Like, nobody's probably said to him, "What would you say if you had an elf hat on?" I mean, maybe you wouldn't all say that, but you could just like be very open about the conversation and sharing something about yourself, which maybe create a space where somebody else can feel like they can share. Because like these small little acts and questions, and just even smiling at somebody or giving them a hug. Dave's got the best hugs. I need one of those soon. And that's just, I think my message is just to take away from this is probably been a little bit disjointed, and I probably need to get that a bit more in order. But it's, how can you be that elf in the room? How can you support somebody that might have some tangled lights that need on the pieces need sticking together, and somebody that might be hiding their things in a box that's like stays in the loft? How do you help them bring that box down and say like, should we just have a little look inside that box, and actually how can we make you shine again? And that's like, how can you be that elf in the room? And also, how can you create those moments of connection? Like, and that's what I encourage anybody to do, is like every single day, how can you have one moment of connection that maybe pushes you out of your comfort zone, or maybe you like wouldn't necessarily talk to somebody in the queue. I spoke to a man in a coffee queue who has ended up being one of my best friends and emotional, like he's my great emotional support, and he's helped me find work recently. So he, like just even those connections, like you might help someone, but it always kind of comes full circle back around. So yeah, I will leave you with that. And I personally think that connection, and I see this at the Samaritans, somebody picks up that phone at the Samaritans and they do not want to be here the next day, but they are picking up the phone because they are desperately in need of a connection, and to have that connection with a human. Like, they can't get that from this. We're in this world of AI, they can't get that from AI. So how can we build those connection points before somebody has to feel like they need to pick up the phone to Samaritans? Because connection is the most powerful gift that we have, and it's not just at Christmas, it's at every time of the year. And mental health is not just at Christmas, it is at all times of the year. So that is me. I'm Roxy. I do dress up as mental health. My dream is to do a big campaign to get mental health back to Lapland, but helping people, like following mental health's journey, where mental health might wake up one day and she might walk, she might run the next, but she journals and she meditates and she has connections with strangers, and we follow that journey. So if there's anybody that can help me make that happen, if there's anybody that needs any freelance support, like I'm wanting to do presenting or speaking or anything with a purpose that is project based, please reach out to me, because yes, my financial worries are still there, and I'm trying to just get myself back into the world. So yeah, thank you for listening. And I've been Roxy, and next time I will be mental health when I come back on this ESG. Thank you, Dave and James.
Roxy, do you know what? I'll be absolutely devastated if you're not on the next CSG in your mental health costume. You are wonderful. Thank you so much. And one of the most inspirational people we've ever met, and an absolute ray of sunshine. I know that anyone who's ever partnered or collaborated with you has felt the same, and we're so incredibly proud to have you as an Includability Ambassador. I know the Samaritans are exactly the same. So please do connect with Roxy. We all need her in our lives. And I know, of course, open to new opportunities. So please do reach out and book in that coffee with her. She is utterly incredible. James often tells me that a handshake is more appropriate than a hug. I don't even know what that looks like. So hugging is great all the way. And James is a great hugger. Roxy, we love you. Thank you again. That was absolutely wonderful. And finally, our hot date for your diary is our next community support group. That'll be happening on Wednesday, the 27th of May, same time, 10:30 a.m., where we'll be listening to 3 more wonderful guest speakers to help inspire you on your journey in creating that healthier, more inclusive workplace culture for your business. That registration link is in the chat feed for you now. James, thanks so much. And we'd absolutely love for you to join us. So please do sign up. Bring your friends and your teammates with you. And that brings us to the end of our CSG this morning. It's been incredible. A huge thank you to our absolutely brilliant, inspirational guest speakers, to Stacey, Alex, and Roxy, for their generosity and sharing their insights, their knowledge, and their experiences with us today. And a huge, huge thank you to every single one of you, our brilliant community, for joining us with us this morning. It's been wonderful to see you as always. So until we all meet again next month, loads of love to you all, and have an incredible rest of your week. Take good care, everyone.